Hello, folks. Just days before the G20 Leaders Summit in South Africa, a big event which Cyril Ramaphosa has been preparing for all year, and ANC is trying to use this as a launching pad to prove that South Africa is relevant on the world stage. It's all falling apart. China's leader won't come, but he doesn't always come. Okay. Russia's leader won't come. Well, it's because there's an international criminal court arrest warrant against him, even though the warrant has no validity because Russia's not a signatory to it, and the crimes that occurred did not occur in a country that is a signatory. The alleged crimes occurred in Ukraine, which is also not a signatory of the ICC. Therefore, the ICC has no jurisdiction over Putin, Russia, or Ukraine. And South Africa has a history of not turning over those who were wanted on a warrant anyway. Omar al-Bashir was simply, we looked the other way on that one when he went to South Africa. So it's just utterly ridiculous that that's even an issue here. So South Africa is trying to remain relevant on the world stage. And how are they remaining relevant? Well, the G20 summit is their big deal. But all these leaders are not coming. They're not coming. Mexico's not coming. Argentina's not coming. Now Japan's not coming. That makes 5 countries that aren't coming to the G20. They're leaders. But all the attention is being focused on Donald Trump and attacking Donald Trump. So just days before the summit kicks off, the International Relations and Cooperation Minister Ronald Lamola has accused President Donald Trump's administration of pursuing an agenda of white supremacy in a CNN interview aired this evening.
That is fear-mongering to pursue the agenda of white supremacy.
You think Trump is pursuing a white supremacist agenda?
Yes, I think so.
In the interview, CNN's Donnie O'Sullivan asked Lamola, do you think Trump is pursuing the white supremacist agenda? By the way, what's the white supremacist agenda there, Donnie? What is that? And Lamola answered saying, yes, I think so. With the program to take white Afrikaners from South Africa, it's a clear program to back up the issue of white supremacy. When you look at the Geneva Convention, they don't fit the definition of a refugee. Well, let's just pull that apart. First off, he's mistaken, and he knows he's mistaken. It's not a program to take white Afrikaners from South Africa. It's a program for racial minorities. Coloreds, Indians, other white South Africans, and Afrikaners have come over in the program thus far and are still coming over. And how exactly does removing white South Africans from South Africa advance a white supremacy agenda in South Africa? Or do you mean in America? A handful of white South Africans coming to America is going to advance a white supremacy agenda? He says when you look at the Geneva Convention, they don't fit the definition of a refugee. But in fact, he's quite incorrect. Quite incorrect. They do fit the definition perfectly. You see the Geneva Convention that he's talking about, and we're talking about the 1951 Refugee Convention, international agreement, and its 1967 follow-on protocol. And under those treaties, they define a refugee as someone with a well-founded fear of persecution for reasons of race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. Well-founded fear. So how are they not refugees? These people have well-founded fear, and it's all documented. All their cases are documented. The background checks, investigation have been done. And if they don't have a well-founded fear, they won't be coming over. So Lamola continued, yes, I think so. Now, Donnie O'Sullivan recently traveled to South Africa to investigate allegations of white genocide, which he states has gained traction among some Americans who fear the changing demographics that are projected in the U.S. Some Americans, fringe people on the outside. And also, this is disingenuous. CNN contacted me earlier this summer and said they want to do a documentary on South Africa. They want to talk about its economy, what's going on there, and its prospects, as well as touch on the refugee program. So this documentary is disingenuous. Investigating white genocide, this is a term used by the left. People like CNN using this. This is not something most people on the right are using. It's been used over and over again to attack people. Now it's being attached to persecution. Specifically, South African officials saying that white genocide is the same as Afrikaner persecution. They're the ones saying it, not Afrikaners. And the 44 Ferraias who came out and lied about what's happening in South Africa in their letter would be part of that crowd. Folks, here's the problem with all this. At a time when South Africa should be negotiating with the U.S., there's no trade representative, there's no ambassador in Washington, there's no delegation in Washington negotiating trade with our trade representative, none whatsoever. Yet they continually lie to the South African people and tell them, hey, we're negotiating. We still want a good arrangement with the United States. Well, of course they want a good arrangement. But they want to be able to insult America and call us racist and white supremacists and attack us, despite the fact that you would have millions of dead South Africans were it not for America's intervention, with $8.1 billion of money in HIV, while Thabo Mbeki was denying that AIDS was caused by HIV. We were helping. In addition to that, the United States has provided billions of dollars in development assistance to South Africa, money to fight gender-based violence. The list goes on and on and on, sponsoring loans from the IMF and World Bank for South Africa. And what do we get in return for it? We get a country that refuses to give a waiver to protect our soldiers against malicious prosecution under the International Criminal Court. We get insults like vaccine apartheid. We get actions taken by the South African government against our direct interests repeatedly, assaults and attacks verbally in the press. And this racist comment from Ronald Lamola is not a one-off, folks. Now you have two senior officials in the South African government who have insulted America and called Donald Trump a white supremacist. That, of course, would be Ibrahim Rasool, former ambassador in Washington, and now Ronnie Lamola. And what the two of them are saying appear to be simply what the ANC believes. But, of course, the truth is far from that. Donald Trump did more for black Americans in his first term as president than any president in living history. In living history. Any president. Any president. This is utter nonsense. This is just the rantings of people that believe social media, that listen to the press, that are slanted and lack objectivity, a la the CNN documentary, which they misled me about. And by the way, I'm not in the documentary. They cut me out of it, and I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that. I'm glad I'm not part of it, because people are not going to like this documentary because it came with a preconceived notion and agenda. Now, for Mr. O'Sullivan, he asked me the question about what gives Trump the right to let these people come over and why white people, and to which I responded, it wasn't just white people. And nobody had a problem when Ukrainians came over. 300,000 Ukrainians flooded in this country. They're white. No one had an issue with that. But with South Africans, because they're white, apparently people have an issue with that. Why? Because they're racist and bigots. It's as simple as that. And the program isn't just for whites. It's also for coloreds and Indians. And they have also come over. Mr. O'Sullivan, I told him where to find the information. I said, you go to the U.S. Embassy website. It's right there. Or you can talk to refugees that come over who fit that. But that's not in the interest of CNN. They don't want to talk about that. And they don't want to include me in the documentary. And that's perfectly fine with me. Thank you for the free plane ride and for the accommodation. I appreciate that. But this is nonsense, folks. This is utter nonsense. You know, it's odd that this comes at this time, but now we begin to see a clear pattern of what's going on. An uptick in the social media glitterati, who are the leftist, blue-haired, pink-haired Tanis and hate wankers on the left who like to tweak this issue of racial discrimination. They run about race all the time. There's a big uptick in that going on in advance of this G20 summit. In addition to that, the IMF foolishly gave South Africa's ANC 1.4 billion or 1.114 billion in additional funding with no basis whatsoever to do that recently. And now, on the eve of the summit, we see Standard & Poor's upgrade South Africa's debt rating. It's still junk bond status, but they've upgraded. And their argument is nonsensical. They say structural reforms. The structural reforms are actually contrary to good governance and to economic growth. The nationalization of healthcare, the abrogation of property rights, NHI, EWC, these are not things conducive. The forcing of corporations, they say voluntarily, but they're going to force them to give 3% of after-tax profits to black South Africans. I mean, these are not things that are going to cause the economy to grow, the collapse of infrastructure. So there's no basis for Standard & Poor's to upgrade the rating. It's all done on the eve of the G20 summit. Why? Because the G20 summit is falling apart. And even if it hadn't fallen apart, this was all part of a grand strategy, obviously, by leftists. It may not have been coordinated, but clearly it's an effort by CNN to make South Africa's government look good, make Donald Trump look bad, and attack white people because of their racism against white people at CNN. And it's also an effort by Standard & Poor's to boost the South African government. So all of this happening at the same time is not coincidental. Now, to be fair, it is big news that South Africa is the president of the G20, and the end of their term would be a big time for news. But an objective approach to this would have been to not change South Africa's debt rating and just leave it as it is because there's no basis to raise it. Another objective position would have been not to give the South African government $1.4 billion in advance of it because that simply has no basis. What was the basis? They can't pay back the debt they have now. How are they going to pay back that money? And of course, they're asking for debt relief in the G20. That's how. And then the final thing here is that CNN could have approached this objectively and done a documentary, as they'd informed me their intent was, about South Africa on the eve of the G20. Not some race-tinged, race-hustling, white supremacy nonsense that they're running. And there you have it, folks. So this is not going to improve relations. Now we have two senior officials calling Trump a white supremacist. And we have op-eds in South African media running interference for this nonsense, claiming that Trump is attacking South Africa when it's quite the opposite. It was South Africa that abrogated property rights in December of 2024, and its president who lied about it, famously signing the law in Davos when it had already gone into effect in December, thereby abrogating the 30-day period, avoiding it so that Parliament couldn't protest his law. It was Cyril Ramaphosa did that, not Donald Trump, not America. And that made South Africa ineligible for the African Growth and Opportunity Act, and we still let them stay in it all the way until it expired on 30 September. How nice of us. Attacking South Africa? No. Yes, we canceled assistance, but when you call us white supremacists and you attack us, what do you expect? What do you expect? When you abrogate property rights, you have no justification to receive taxpayer money in your country. It's been South Africa that's attacked America over and over and over again, not the other way around. A couple posts from Trump, a couple comments from him, all you have to do is refute it. All you have to do is say there aren't 145 race laws. Of course, you can't do that. There are 145 race-based laws. All you can say is that no one expropriated the Akalan Broderai. But yes, it was expropriated. They returned it because it was illegal, and then they forced them out of business. So all you have to say is that no, there was no land stolen in Sesheho or in the Eastern Cape or in Northwest. But you can't because that did happen. All you have to say is there are no problems with rural insecurity and people being targeted because of their race. But you can't because it's true. All you have to say is there are no farm murders, but you can't because it's true, even though you use fake statistics covered up. See, here's the problem, folks. Here's the problem. All right, that's enough. Ronald Lamola has not helped advance relations with the U.S. And at this stage, he's either not very bright, and he thinks that the world will support him, but he doesn't realize just how stupid what he said is. Maybe he doesn't care. Maybe he did because Cyril told him it's okay to say that. Whatever the case is, this is a situation where a foreign minister who made such a stupid statement should be relieved immediately. Should be removed from office immediately and should be disciplined by his political party. But that won't happen here. And the proof is, if that doesn't happen, that simply means that the ANC endorses calling America white supremacist and Donald Trump white supremacist. There you go. That's the bottom line. Cheers.